So did you know Dave Franco, yeah, that guy, made a brilliant directorial debut a few years back during the early months of COVID that unfortunately yet understandably went right under everybody's radar. While I don't like throwing the term underrated around too often, The Rental is certainly fitting up the description, as Franco's first effort is an utterly bone-chilling home invasion film that's one part social thriller and one part slasher flick, as reductive as the latter term might make it seem. As a filmic mood board, you've got the slick, modern Hitchcockian ambience of The Invitation, the sudden and surprising brutality of Vacancy, and the random and banal evil of Psycho and The Strangers. Now, it's worth bearing in mind to say too much borders on spoiler territory, because this is far from your traditional home invasion flick in the sense that it's not technically framed as one, at least at first. While conceptually The Rental is a provocative play on the absolute worst nightmare scenario of staying in a stranger's Airbnb, the horror only accounts for about 20 minutes of the total runtime, hence it's much better to go in with zero knowledge for the impact to make more sense. Truly at its heart, The Rental is a prime example of a mumblecore film, or in respect to its horror subversion, mumblegore. It's a movement that emerged in the early 2000s to serve as Generation X millennial America's answer to British kitchen sink realism and French New Wave, where the emphasis was usually placed on 20-something-year-olds still coasting existentially through the stresses and monotony of adulthood, with filmmaking traits including naturalistic and sometimes improvised dialogue, and relying on low-key, relatably intimate settings that focus first and foremost on character. In terms of both horror and thriller, I've covered many films that fit the label, yet to give you an idea of where it lands, a few prominent filmmakers in the space would include Adam Wingard, Jeremy Saulnier, Mark Duplass, and Ty West, but in Franco's case, he co-wrote and produced the film with Joe Swanberg, a massively underrated indie filmmaking MVP who's collaborated on countless projects in both the mumblecore and general independent scene that you likely have come across before, whether you know or not. If you're familiar with his work, you're immediately going to notice how he helps guide Franco's storytelling by refusing to abide to genre rules or expectations to let the characters and story evolve in a natural, believable, and humanistic way. If I've intrigued you, this is your last chance to go in blind. The best way I can describe the film is that it's a very disarming experience, in that it will suck you into its character drama before unraveling into chaos. As always, leave your thoughts and feelings in the comments below, including a cheeky wee like and subscribe if you haven't, and lastly, here are a few words from this video's sponsor, Harry's. So every few weeks, I like to reset my face to keep the fuzz under control, and Harry's has been watching my back for a good while now, as their durable German-engineered blades give me a cleaner and significantly smoother shave. So my girlfriend says a lot less Ryan, you missed a spot, and a lot more Ryan, aren't you hot? Because of the razor's flex hinge, I'm able to keep my surface shaving simple and consistent, and I'm always impressed how much of my beard the 5 blades can chop through when it comes to clean shaving, saving me both time and effort. But best of all, because Harry's are independently manufactured, they balance quality with affordability, meaning they offer everything at fair, honest factory direct prices, so you can save money without reducing what matters, and that's sculpting your face and body at the highest perfection to make you feel good about yourself in personal, professional, and general public settings. Shaving is just a natural part of life, so why not make Harry's your personal tool of grooming destruction today by clicking the link in the description box below and getting a Harry's trial set for just $5, which has the equivalent value of $13. And also by doing so, you will be supporting my channel as well. Thanks again to Harry's for sponsoring this video and for helping to keep the lights on. The Rental tells the story of two couples who decide to book a weekend away in a secluded cliffside house to celebrate two of the group obtaining seed funding for their tech startup based in Portland, Oregon, because of course it is. Among the group are Charlie, his girlfriend Michelle, his brother Josh, and Josh's girlfriend and Charlie's business partner Mina. What stands out at first is that the film forgoes conventional horror iconography for a beautiful, peaceful, scenic setting that subverts the dodgy, decrepit dilapidated cabin in the woods we're so used to. It reminds me of a similar vibe to Stu's parents' house in Scream, in that it's got this balance between cozy and unfamiliar, where nothing is out of the ordinary and it's not as if they're completely cut off from civilization, but being on a cliffside adds an inherent tension at the back of your mind, as if they're put into a dangerous corner. It certainly doesn't help that their first impression of the homeowner Taylor is that of an antagonistic, misogynistic racist who gives off the instant vibe of suspicious creep, as he claims to only live down the road incidentally near his unseen, unnamed brother, saying he's on call in case of issues or emergencies. Enough experience and exposure to films like this will naturally lead you to build up the expectation he's clearly up to no good, and he and his brother are likely the perpetrators in what's inevitably going to transpire, but we'll put a pin in that for now. In what might be a bit of a turnoff for some people, the next hour doesn't actually involve anything you would consider suspenseful, as the focus quite cleverly remains solely on the two couples and the increasing tensions in their relationships. However, don't worry, because the film is supported by strong, nuanced writing and performances across the board, as we open with Charlie being both concerned and frustrated by his brother Josh, who served time for nearly beating a man to death, and now wishes to redeem himself and slowly piece his life back together, much to his own insecurities and constant self-doubt.
76 beefs, 34 chickens, okay? 12 french fries.
Josh feels uncertain about his future with Mina, as she seems more distracted by her professional life, leaving Josh to share commonality with Michelle, who also suffers anxieties about her relationship with Charlie, who again seems more focused on his professional commitments. Both characters seem to sense a mild contempt from Charlie and Mina, who share a close connection as business partners, and this is just me, but I totally get where Josh and Michelle are coming from, because Charlie and Mina come off as casually arrogant and self-centered throughout the entire film. I appreciate that they're more complex and complicated than simply being labelled good or bad people, at least until things escalate. The thing is, we only ever get a snippet of their lives and their history with one another, so by the end of the film, while revelations do show themselves, to us they're still ultimately strangers who we walk by every day, and who, in this case, we're just voyeuristically intruding upon, a point that ties itself back into the conclusion, which we'll come to later. On the first night, in a genuinely funny twist on the cliches of teen slashers, Michelle taps into the nostalgia of the good old days by producing ecstasy, much to both the fright and excitement of the group. But instead of some wild party, they just end up zoning out and getting tired, with Michelle doing what I and most of us probably would do, and that's going to bed early. Here's the thing, my friends and I are approaching 30 this year, and watching this film again for review, I honestly related too much to that weird quarter-life crisis of, oh goddamn, yeah, I don't have the energy for all that late-night party shenanigans. Like we have a walk in the morning. That's a daunting activity. The idea of being drunk and trying to stay awake past 11 o'clock is a fucking horror movie in its own right. Anyway, as I'm sure many of you suspected, when Michelle and Josh go to sleep, Charlie and Mina decide to enter the hot tub, where the sexual tensions go from steamy to boiling in a mere instant, and in DiCaprio-pointing fashion try to resist their temptations before boning each other in the shower. This becomes, believe it or not, the catalyst for the nightmare that transpires the following night, as the morning after, the film's tone transitions into full-blown discomfort, as Charlie and Mina stay at the house suffering from hangover and regret, while Michelle and Josh go on their planned hike. By the way, besides one distant POV shot with heavy breathing, you'll totally forget that this is supposed to be a horror movie, as the tension between Charlie and Mina sucks all the oxygen out of the room, with the quiet, scoreless ambience of them agreeing to never speak nor encourage their infidelity ever again. While they do seem remorseful, I'm not going to commend them for realizing it was a mistake, because it's not hard to just not fuck someone who's not your partner, and they're more shamed at the idea of getting caught since they never own up to their partners. It only gets worse when Josh tells Michelle that Charlie historically has a pattern of unfaithful behavior, which naturally upsets Michelle, who later confronts Charlie as he continues to dodge giving a straight answer on his past. By this point, most of you are probably thinking, Ryan, where's the horror movie in this? This all just sounds like a relationship drama about cheating, where I'm sure there'll be a massive fallout before they have to bitterly reunite to take on the real evil or something of that kind. Well, when I said this film unravels into chaos, I meant that in the most jarring way possible. Spoilers, obviously. So, during the day, Mina and Charlie discover a hidden camera in the shower head, causing Mina to call the cops in disgust over the perverted transgressions of Taylor the homeowner. However, Charlie suggests they should not because he's more fearful of Taylor exposing the footage of them having intercourse in the shower to Josh and Michelle. So, in a stupid, blind panic, they decide to ignore this obvious red flag and never mention it to the others. In Charlie's questionable mind, what's the worst that can happen? He's a creepy old perv who's partially just watching over his own house, and after the weekend, they'll never see him again. That night, Michelle decides to both hilariously and heartbreakingly party and do drugs alone after her fallout with Charlie, eventually calling Taylor to fix the now broken hot tub, much to Charlie's surprise. This is how the style of mumblegore shows itself. While we know something big and horrific is coming, the setup does very little to engage with or acknowledge it in a deliberate effort to make you drop your guard like the characters. You are placed purely in their headspace the entire way through. The less you know or realize, the more shocking it becomes. Sure, you're already on your toes knowing something isn't right, but it's so scarce to basically non-existent in detail that you cannot emotionally prepare yourself for when it finally happens. However, what happens next is actually a wildly different kind of chaos than you're likely expecting by this point. Mina ends up confronting Taylor about the secret camera, and he reveals he knows nothing about it, even offering to call the cops to prove his own innocence, but Josh, believing Taylor to be an aggressor and having his own suspicions that Taylor took his now missing dog, abruptly attacks him and beats him unconscious. While the group try to make sense of the situation as Josh struggles with the guilt of relapsing back into violence, completely out of the blue without any real build-up, the killer just casually arrives and suffocates Taylor unbeknownst to them. Some of you might consider that bad suspense, but trust me, from here on out, you're about to see this movie shoot into utter, unforgiving brutality. Brace yourself. With the group soon believing Taylor's death to be the result of Josh's beating, Charlie, not wanting to see his brother back in prison, decides to take the I know what you did last summer approach of convincing the others bar Michelle to stage the death as an accident by pushing the body over the cliff. It turns into a surprisingly grueling and cringy scene as they fail to get the body into the ocean when it gets stuck on a ledge, causing them to throw big rocks in an effort to shift the body the rest of the way over, with Josh eventually climbing down to finish the job. It sets up all these dominoes to be addressed: the infidelity, will the group get caught for dumping the body, the mystery of the cameras, which we now know have nothing to do with Taylor, the possible suspicion of his unseen brother. All of this essentially means nothing in the end, when Michelle drives off in heartbreak after seeing the shower tape mysteriously played on the TV, and ends up breaking down when her tires are slashed by road spikes, where once again, without any build-up, out of absolutely nowhere, the killer takes his second victim off screen. Nobody dies in the order you think they will, and that's not including how swift the deaths all occur. While Alison Brie and Dan Stevens are framed as the leads over Sheila Vand and Jeremy Allen White, they're the first to go. Both Michelle and Charlie die within a tight, unceremonious minute or so window of each other, and you are given no time to process it. There's no build-up, no dramatic fight for survival, just a straight hammer to the head and their story is over. Michelle's death in particular hammers in the cold, uncaring reality of violence, pun partially intended I guess, as despite her character technically suffering the most heartache, symbolizing her as the proverbial morally innocent one, to abruptly kill her off screen and then have her be used merely as bait to kill off Charlie, the most guilty, immoral one, subverts the classical subtext of slasher flicks. You could say there is an ironic karma to Charlie's death when you consider the point I've made countless times before about 80s slasher flicks playing on the subtext of punishing sexual promiscuity, where the killer becomes this metaphor metaphoric harbinger of judge and executioner. I'm not saying it's necessarily intended this way, but there is this moral twist to the killer using the footage of their infidelity to bait an impulsive reaction out of the two most emotionally vulnerable characters, Michelle and Josh, the victims of that infidelity, to get them alone and murder them quickly, while leaving the two unfaithful party to witness the horror and the resulting carnage that infidelity led to before they're executed after. Again, this is on top of the fact that the only reason they're technically still in this scenario is because Charlie and Mina ignored the red flag to hide their dirty secret. The choice to kill the characters in the order that they do proves very meticulous, because very soon after Charlie and Michelle are killed, Josh, like Charlie, starts receiving messages from Charlie's phone revealing the infidelity, and not knowing it's the killer because, bear in mind, none of them ever learn a killer exists, goes around the house in a blind rage looking for Charlie, only to get suddenly hammered to death as well. This leaves us with Mina to get a bit of a final girl moment where she does fight back and escape through the thick fog as the killer chases behind, but then comes the perfectly bleak cherry on top where she does an absolute Fargo by accidentally running off the fucking cliff. I mean, talk about a very unique Chekhov's gun. It also works by making the killer seem kinda disappointed by such an anticlimax, but what further cements the impact is how the decompression after all this sudden and meaningless chaos is watching the killer simply clean up all evidence of his presence. We never see his face, we never hear him speak. It's framed as an empty victory. In the very next scene, he's moved on to another Airbnb where we see him cut an identical key, set up cameras, and essentially wait for the right moment to strike once again. There's no resolution, no clarity to what happened. What we watched were just random people who became the unfortunate souls to a killer who seems to have no motive other than to feed his urge to kill. You will go through the movie building up this big, grand cinematic conspiracy in your head, but what makes it so truly harrowing is how simple and empty it ultimately is. On that point, some of you are probably wondering about Josh's dog I briefly mentioned. Don't worry, it survives. The reason it went missing was simply because it got off its lead and ran off. No big dramatic reveal, just another red herring alongside Taylor's unseen brother. Overall, Franco and Swanberg made an incredibly intelligent decision to end the film the way that they do, in that this story doesn't technically end. We see camera feeds of other guests staying in that next Airbnb as the credits simply begin to roll, each of them having their own stories and conflicts to tell, much like the protagonists we just followed. Akin to the opening of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, which the rental significantly draws most of its violence and storytelling methods from, it's like picking a window into any random person's life and making them the unfair target, exposing us to the reality that any one of these people, family, friends, you or I, could be next.